Both of the political parties are very similar in that many politicians in both parties today and 100 years ago have been captured by a corporate class that wants to undercut any rights that working people have. It is Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend. This is like one of two Christmases for me. Adam, talk to us about Labor Day.
That's right. Yeah, it's a big day. My wife told me this is our day to shine, Jacob.
That's right.
So we're pretty busy as union folks around this time of year. You know, with Labor Day weekend, for many, that's a time of food and football and family and kind of a last taste of summer. With the 3-day weekend, you hope, right? Not every worker does get Labor Day off, but many do, and so for a lot of families, a lot of folks, it's a fun time. But as labor unionists, it's also an opportunity for us to tell our story and share our story and really illustrate why we have this holiday in the first place, right? Thanks to the achievements, the courage, the struggles, and sacrifices of working people in our unions throughout our history. You know, the fight for the 8-hour day, child labor laws, workplace safety, we could go on and on. Labor rights have not been given to us. These rights were not simply handed out, like civil rights, like women's rights, like all of our human rights. We've had to fight and engage in collective struggle to make progress. So Labor Day is that moment to reflect on the power of working people. But this Labor Day, our movement is facing some of the toughest challenges we've faced in many, many decades. We are moving backwards. We're losing ground on those hard-fought rights. Our freedoms, our families, and our security are under attack. And in this dire moment, we can look around and see mass confusion and shameless deception. There's widespread alienation and disengagement among the working class majority. We're all flooded with misinformation and contrived distractions and AI garbage. Corporate power is increasing its grip over the media, and the far right wing pumps out propaganda on a really monumental scale. So given this context, Jacob, why do you think labor media is so important in this moment?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that for me, labor media is you know, it's always important. We started this program back over 5 years ago now, because I felt like there is such a lack of understanding among kind of the general populace about how we got things like the 8-hour day, how we got things like the weekend, how we got paid leave, to the extent that many people even have those anymore. And the way that we got that is through organizing and unions used to be such a huge institution, and they still are in the lives of many people, but they used to be such a huge institution. Even in a state like Alabama, there were multiple labor newspapers. Just up here in North Alabama, we had the Shoals Labor Advocate was around for a long time, a production of the Shoals Labor Council and the Building Trades Council. And media like that was so important in pushing back against the robber barons of the day, against the politicians in either political party. And, you know, both of the political parties that were around back then were very different than the ones that are around today, in many ways. But in many ways, they're both the same. They're very similar in that many politicians in both parties today and 100 years ago have been captured by a corporate class that wants to undercut any rights that working people have, any freedoms that we have in and from the workplace. And so having media that is funded by working people, that is funded by the labor movement, that is funded by normal people in the community rather than companies that are trying to advertise a product to you or rather than oil barons who want to push a particular political agenda. I think there's a value there, and there is I don't want to say independence. There's been a big story about independent media over the last couple of weeks that's interesting, and I don't think that we're going to have the time to talk about it, and I haven't really looked enough into it to discuss it. But we're not, independent media. We are labor media. We are funded by unions and the labor movement, and we are part of unions and the labor movement. We are both members of unions. We are both leaders in our unions and in the labor movement. And so we're not independent. We see ourselves as part of the organized working class, a collective of people that are trying to build power for workers, and having media that is beholden to those interests rather than beholden to the companies and the people who make money because they have money, whose money is what makes them money. We are not beholden to that. Basically every other media, anywhere else that you get your news from, whether that's talk radio or whether that's CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, all of those folks are beholden to corporations and political donors who are rich because they are rich, who make money because they have money. Okay? We're not going to tell you that we're independent, but we are beholden to workers and to unions and the labor movement. And I think even if you want to discount a little bit what we have to say because we are beholden to working people and unions and the labor movement, that's fine. We have a bias and we admit that bias. But it is a counter bias to literally everything else. And I think that is what makes our project a little bit different, and why we focus so much on, unions and working people stories rather than, what is the, what's the politics thing that's happening right now. And we lose a lot of audience for that, right? I mean, we could be, I see other YouTube channels and I see other media projects that kind of comment that their thing is commenting on the latest political thing.
The news cycle of the day.
Yeah,
right?
The news cycle of the day.
That the media itself creates, and then they all comment on each other, right, to generate more content.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
And we don't do that. And maybe we should do more of it. And I'm not saying it's bad to do that, because, you can do that in a way and you can catch the algorithm and you can ride the wave in such a way. And while you're doing that, you can put in education and push people more towards the politics that you think are valuable. But we don't do that very much. It's very rare that we do that. And, I see other media projects that have a significantly higher following, but we hope that our relentless focus on the stories of working people over the stories of the people who are in power is a valuable counterweight to everything else that you hear. And so, why is labor media important? I think that's why.
Right. And, there's a lot I would add to that, but I would just, before I do that, I wanted to ask you really, and you spoke to some of the impact of what this project has done. And I'm curious what kind of feedback, we've gotten from listeners and guests that is worth sharing with folks. And, also just looking back over the last few years, whether it's the past year or the whole 5+ years we've been on the air, are there examples or stories, that we've brought to the air that you don't think would have otherwise gotten any coverage?
I'll say that as far as the feedback that we get, that I'm most proud of course, we get a lot of feedback, and there are people that send us emails, and there are people that leave us voicemails, and some of which we don't play on the air, obviously, and we don't respond on the air because a lot of it is sensitive, and people. But the things that I most enjoy, because it's what the project is about, is when people reach out to us and tell us that we have inspired them to build a union in their workplace, to take power for themselves and their coworkers and fight back against literally the tyranny of the boss. I say that the workplace is a dictatorship and your boss is a tyrant, and people say that that's kind of that might feel hyperbolic, but it's not. It's not hyperbolic. And so when people take those steps to try to take the power that they have, I think that's super gratifying to see that. When people tell us that they have decided to become a steward in their union, when people tell us that they have, joined the negotiating committee, when we have inspired people to action, that's the kind of feedback that I most value. And, stories or conversations that we've, brought to light over the last 5 years that might not, you just literally go to any week, and we're having a union member or an officer talk to us about their latest contract negotiation. A couple of weeks ago, we had the IBEW Local 136 on to talk about their most recent contract negotiation. Literally nowhere else. There was no other outlet that talked about how electricians in Birmingham are getting a 12% raise and their first-year apprentices are getting something like a 20% raise. The union electricians in Birmingham, obviously not the non-union electricians in Birmingham. Literally no other outlet in the state of Alabama had that story because they don't know these people. They don't even know to look for the stories, right? And so those are the kinds of things that that you get here on the Valid Labor Report that you're literally not going to get anywhere else. And then last week in Southern Labor, we have, several stories like that all the time. One about how, and we didn't, and I think we're going to have these nursing home workers on the program here in a couple of weeks. I've been talking to the union about trying to make this happen, but nursing home workers in Pell City, Alabama, just unionized. That was in last week in Southern Labor, and they just finished negotiating their first contract. That was in last week in Southern Labor. You're going to get small headline stories like that again, either we have pulled from the unions themselves, or we found other news websites reporting on that, and we give you kind of like a labor roundup. But a lot of times, again, it's stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else because no other outlet reported on the Pell City nursing home workers who unionized and at Diversicare and negotiated their first contract.
Yeah. There's so much more we could get into in terms of why we do what we do and, why this is important. And I just want to encourage listeners to really think about how you can participate in this project, how you can be a supporter of this project, because, we want to consider y'all as part of this work, as partners in building a stronger labor movement, not just consumers of content. And whatever you can do is appreciated. Whether that is chipping in a few bucks every month or once a year or as you're able, whether that's liking and sharing and subscribing to the content, getting the word out, talking to your coworkers, talking to your fellow union members, your friends, your neighbors, sharing with your social networks. That really does go a long way. We appreciate it. And I just want to thank all of y'all sincerely, who do listen, who do subscribe, who share, who donate, who spread the word. Your support is how we do this and why we do this, to amplify the voices of the working class, especially here in the American South, to try to spread a message of collective action, diverse people power, and working class solidarity. The labor movement right now is in a fight for its life, and we have to be honest about that. And building our own working class media is a small part, but an important part of how we can win, how we can fight back. So we can't do it without you. Please stand with us. We appreciate your support. Go to tvlr.fm/donate if you want to chip in a few bucks. It will go a long way. We truly appreciate it. While you're there, check out the shop, subscribe to the newsletters, we're asking all of you who listen to be part of this project, to help us grow this project. If not now, then when? If not you, then who? So let's see how far we can take this thing together. And I'm wishing everyone a happy Labor Day.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.